Thank you for your help.
Glad to be of service, Doctor. Anytime you need my help, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm at your service, Doctor. That's my job. Doctor. That is the rudest nigga I've ever seen in my life.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm Ryan from contend.com, and today I'm joined with my co-host, Martin.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Today we're bringing the Black and Blood and Black Rum podcast out. We're celebrating Black History Month. Now, we always do this within February. Try to take an episode to do a nice celebration of Black History Month by covering a blaxploitation movie. It's really one of the only times that we get to trot out a blaxploitation movie. You know, we try to cover them here and there, but we try to do it when the occasion arises, and that is always during February. And also, it doesn't help that we missed Friday the 13th, which was last week, and really was the perfect time for us to do another Friday the 13th movie because it would have hit on, we release our episodes on Fridays and we missed it, but
I don't even remember which one we left off on.
I can't remember either. I feel like it was
4 or 5.
I want to say 5 maybe. I can't remember now. Yeah.
We haven't hit the new line era yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but it would have been a perfect time to do them, but, we missed it. I didn't even realize Friday the 13th was on the table. Didn't really keep track of that. So, but we've had a jam-packed month anyway in February because we've been doing week to week actually, which is not something that we generally do when we're not like in a specific season or a themed month or anything like that. So we've just been really busy. But we definitely want to make time for blaxploitation for February. In the past, we've done a number of different blaxploitation movies, and I think we talked about this a little bit in the last, the outro of the last episode. But like we've done a few different, major blaxploitation movies. A few with Pam Grier. We've done Black Caesar way back, which was pretty fun. We did a spook who sat by the door. What else? We did Shaft.
Yeah.
Shaft was a pretty recent episode. So we've covered some bases in the blaxploitation genre. But one thing that we have never done is a blaxploitation horror film. And admittedly, there aren't very many of those. Blaxploitation generally took on a very sort of action-oriented genre of film. Or like spy thrillers, things like that. But horror was not really a big concern for blaxploitation, and there really only been a couple of monumental blaxploitation horror movies, and I think that is really another reference to the fact that there's not a lot of great black-led horror movies, and I think one of the surprises of this past year was Sinners. Which was a black-led horror movie that just released in 2025 and did very, very well, and is all up for a number of awards as well. So that was kind of a nice surprise, because again, there's not been too many that are really notable, and that's a problem of representation. So, Jordan Peele, obviously working closely in the genre, has released a few. But throughout the years, it's really not been a huge deal for black filmmakers. And I want to say that, like I said, there's really only a couple that were made during the blaxploitation craze that really came out that's saying something because there was a lot of different genre-fied blaxploitation movies too that tried to do a different take on some popular films of the time period. Like one that sticks out to me that I've never admittedly seen is Black Samurai, which just kind of a all around goofy sounding type movie, which I need to see at some point. We haven't ever stumbled on that one to watch, but
we got to combine both. You got to all right, we got blaxploitation, real popular, real fun, and kung fu craze. So let's
Yep.
Black Samurai.
Yeah, I've always loved that one.
The 70s were a great weird time of just
throw stuff at the wall.
Out of pocket shit that was becoming popular.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, what the one that we're doing today is, probably the most notable blaxploitation film, one of the most notable horror blaxploitation films, from the time period, early on in the time period, from 1972, and would go on to inspire a sequel, and that movie is Blacula, which, as you stated before, you were in a college class, and I'll let you tell it again. I know you said it in the last episode too, but what did your professor say about Blacula?
Yeah, so and I mentioned it probably during Black Caesar because one of my college professors, my history professor, that I took a lot of upper level, my capstone and all that with upper level history classes with him. So it was all Black American history, slave trade, etc. First class I took with him was on the Black Power movement, and it was funny because when the course listing for it, it just said history of people movements.
Mm-hmm.
And my counselor, she was like, "Hey, you should take that class. The professor's really good, and you'll probably find it interesting and stuff." So I signed up for it. Didn't know what I was getting into, and professor walks in, and he's like, "Welcome to Black Power." We're talking, and shocked my little white soul.
Oh, nice.
Up in the Adirondacks, and
yeah,
it was hilarious because he came in playing Wu-Tang, and he asked everyone to stand up and say what your name, where you're from, blah blah blah, and when he got to me, told him who I was, where I was from, and he's like, "There's probably not a lot of black people from where you're from, right?" And I go, No, there's not.
Not really. Yeah.
And he's like, "What?" And he's like, what do you think I'm, why do you think I'm allowed to do this? I'm like, "I don't know, you got a degree." And he's like, "We're going to change the way you think." Regardless, but so during that class, we watched, so it was about, Black Panthers, the Black Power movement, and we got into blaxploitation. We did watch Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which we haven't covered yet on the podcast. And, I found it really interesting, stuff like that never gets covered in school, when it comes to the civil rights in high school for the most part, and we took AP US history. We didn't it's just Martin Luther King and I had a dream and, move on. Because usually by the time you hit the 50s and 60s in US history, it's time to the end of the year and you're, skimming through real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found the stuff, real interesting. I ended up taking more classes with him. But in between, taking classes with him, he did he would do a movie night where he would be at a one of the halls and be put a film on and talk about it, get to watch it, etc. And he was doing Black Caesar, and I went, watched it, and as he's introducing it and stuff, I yelled out, I'm like, "Why aren't you doing Blacula? It's almost Halloween." And he's like, "Blacula is a disgrace to black people everywhere and should not be watched at all." So,
yeah. So
because of his firm, film critique, I have stayed away from the film.
You've made it a point to not check it out. Well,
yeah.
Well, here we are.
Because it is ridiculous. I don't even know, even within the pastiche of, really leaning into, how can we squeeze as much money as possible out of this trend?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, to me, especially like now, this is not the 70s, so like I'm not, and I'm not black, so I can't be like, wow, like this is something for me, because there is stuff in here that obviously is targeted towards, African Americans, culturally and story wise.
Yeah.
But again, like it's just, even if like say like if this is like Jordan Peele or whatever doing this, I would feel like even still like it's too on the nose, like really we're going there, like
right. Well, and so that's it's kind of important to talk history of blaxploitation because Blacula was released by American International Pictures, which at the time they had been around for about 20 years or so, and they had released a number of big films of the 50s, horror films of the 50s. That was kind of their thing, and they worked a lot with Roger Corman during the 50s and 60s to release a number of Corman flicks that you could probably find now in like those DVD bins of like 50 horror movies on the DVD bins, and you'd probably see a lot of these American International Pictures films.
That's called. I was gonna say that's where this film is. It's on TV.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That's why it's free. You're getting a 480p res version of.
Yeah, but in the scheme of things, in the 70s, again, in American International Pictures was always pivoting a little bit, and they were releasing a number of horror movies, but they were also pivoting to a lot more different types of films. And one of those pivots was to blaxploitation. And in 1972, they released Blacula, which was actually one of their first blaxploitation films that they ever released, along with Slaughter, around the same time period. And Blacula is actually, we're talking about it being, sort of a outlier or maybe not as good in the blaxploitation genre, but it is one of the early, references of blaxploitation, that it is probably one of the earlier things that we point to in the blaxploitation genre. Because movies that we like to kind of uphold for blaxploitation, like Coffee, or Foxy Brown, things that a lot of people recognize, thanks to like Jack Hill, who was a blaxploitation fiend, even though he wasn't black. Nice to always should point that out, that the blaxploitation director of note that we like to refer to, Jack Hill, was not black. He was white. But and we've done a number of Jack Hill films on here, but Coffee was not released until a year after Blacula. And so Blacula, for all its flaws, as we'll talk about on this episode, was one of the earlier films in the blaxploitation craze. And so I think that there is something to be said about it coming early in that sequence of films and kind of trying to find its footing. It would probably do better to find its footing later on in the next couple of years as the blaxploitation cycle would continue. But for an early film, we kind of have to look at it in that respect too, in the context of blaxploitation being released. So I think with that, let's take a break real quick. We'll take a step back before we really get into Blacula, even though we've already criticized it a little bit here in the introduction. And we will talk about the beer that we have on the show today, which I guess is themed for Blacula as well, for blaxploitation in general, because we're talking about Sam Adams Blackberry Witbier, which is a new seasonal offering in their spring pack that they've released with a number of other beers that they've already released previously, including the Breakaway Blonde Ale, the Cold Snap, which they have pretty much made into a spring seasonal. And I think the other new one that they're releasing is, or that they're calling like a newer one, is the Alpine Spring again, which they're bringing back. I don't know if they necessarily ever took it away, but they're calling this pack, they're saying that it has two new ones. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. But the Blackberry Wit, though, is a new one. This is one that has never been out. We've never had. And it was something that stood out to us. And, shame on us for constantly getting excited about stuff like this where they pair fruit type elements with beer, because we're always very excited to hear about some sort of new fruitish beer and then somewhat disappointed after we have it. So that's kind of on us. But the Blackberry Witbier.
Listen, it's a time-honored tradition on this show. A brewery that, is a like prestige like craft brewery that's like, has much seen better days.
Yeah.
They release something and we're like, oh, could it be? And then you have it and you're like, oh.
Well, and actually I should take that back. Apparently these aren't new beers. They're calling them vintage brews. So okay. I assume that means that it was a recipe that they originally had brewed at some point, took away, and now they brought back again. So apparently Blackberry Witbier has been out before. I
imagine it has, because again, you remember like back in the days, like that and Saranac, like, oh, we got a variety pack for this season. Here's 12 beers.
12 new beers.
Or 6 of them, now, for the past decade, now everyone just does, 4 beers and one of them's the bog standard, regular. So you get screwed on the seasonal part.
Yeah. I'll let you go first. What do you think about the Blackberry Witbier?
It's okay. And I don't know if it's because of my chest cold that I have right now. But I mean, I was expecting more from it. And it's not necessarily on the blackberry part, because it does have a bit of strong, present blackberry taste. It doesn't taste too artificial. Does have a little bit of a medicinally taste. And as you said, like when we were talking about it, does have like a bitterness to it that you would get from, like, I'd say, like your small puny blackberries that aren't as good as like the nice big juicy ones. But it's not a bad blackberry taste. My biggest issue with the beer is the fact that it's a wit beer and you don't get any of the lovely wit beerness. You don't get that Belgian yeast. You don't get that coriander. You don't get that orange peel. Says it on the website that you do. You don't. If it's in there, it's completely buried. The body of the beer is very, very just poor. It doesn't have like a nice presence to it when you're drinking it. Doesn't, like I said, doesn't feel like you're drinking a wit beer. It feels like, even though it's 5.5%, it feels like this is like a session, like summer session, like a session lager.
Yeah.
So that to me is my biggest bugaboo with it. It's not bad, but I'm like I said, disappointed because again, wit beers, and as we've said a billion times in this podcast, we love our Belgian beers. We love wit beers. We love that big, bold style. And here it's completely new to the point where it's like, again, what's the point? I get it. Because again, the variety packs and seasonals that all these breweries put out now, they're not geared towards people like us, who have been drinking this shit for 20 years. It's geared to the people that like just don't know better and like, oh, we're on the cruise. We're going to Cape Cod. All right, let's, let me get the Sam seasonal and see what's like, so I can like tell my buddies like, oh, I had cold snap while I was out on like, fishing. So
yeah.
I get it, but at the same, like, I'm just, like I said, I'm disappointed. And I'm glad that you took that dive and you took that plunge for me because, like I said, if I bought this, I would be really pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually on sale. It was on sale too, so I made it.
So there you go.
On a nice sale, but yeah, so I will say that as I'm drinking this, it's growing on me a little bit. I think the blackberry flavor is, it's definitely prominent in the beer. It does have a slight bitterness to it. That is what you would expect sometimes from like a very tart blackberry that you like. Sometimes you'll be munching on blackberries. You'll be like, oh, that one's nice and, sweet and, juicy and delicious. And then you get the next one and be like, ooh, that was kind of, it's kind of fibrous and like a little bit tart. And that's kind of what this beer reminds me of at times is like you do You get that blackberry flavor, but there is definitely an aftertaste of bitterness to it that can be off-putting, I think. It's like I said, it's been growing on me as I've been drinking it. But I will agree that the wit beer element of this, with the mix of coriander and some of the things you would expect from a wit type beer, are just not present in the taste profile. I don't really get any of that. It's an overwhelming sense of blackberry, maybe a little bit of the bitterness aftertaste that I said, but not a whole lot of that wit style. So that is a critique, something that this could have easily just been like a blackberry lager or something like that, because it doesn't really seem to have any of the other components of what would make up the rest of the style that they're presenting, or like a blackberry Keller beer or something like that. I feel like, that's just kind of a missed opportunity. Maybe the blackberry needs to be pared down just a tad so that, and that's the rub too with trying to do a fruit beer type like this, is to manage, is it too blackberry? Is it not enough blackberry? Because on the other hand, you can get beers that are similar to this where you're like, oh, was there blackberry in it? I didn't really know. I didn't notice. Didn't really have the flavor. So that can always be a trade-off. And, in this case, there's definitely a lot of blackberry. So I think that like the mileage may vary with that too. It depends on how much of a blackberry fan you are. And I will say too that it does have, not terrible, but it does have a sort of artificially blackberry flavor to it that it doesn't necessarily taste like a real blackberry juice flavor, to me at least. So it's not bad. I am warming to it a bit, but maybe expected a little bit more of it. With the name alone is just like conjures this very awesome thought of what it could be. And I don't know that it matches the expectation. All right, let's get into Blacula in depth. So like we were saying, Blacula, one of the early blaxploitation films, a black horror movie, not super common for the time period, directed by William Crane, a black man. Also, like as we were talking about with some people who had proliferated in the blaxploitation genre, also not super common to have a black director working on the film. You might have had black writers, but there wasn't always a given that you would have a black director. And so Blacula is kind of interesting in that it has a black director as well, William Crane. And William Crane didn't work on a lot of movies, but he did work on both Blacula and I've never seen this one before, he worked on another blaxploitation horror movie that came out about 4 years later called Dr. Black, Mr. Hyde. So it would have been a blaxploitation retelling of the Robert Louis Stevenson classic, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Again, like I said, I feel like that one is very flying under the radar. It's not a well-recognized movie by any means, at least in my opinion.
It's good.
Yeah, right. But
that's what I said when I saw that on his IMDb, and I was like, especially by like 1976, like you don't have to do this, man. You can. This doesn't have to exist. We can.
Right.
You can.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, with Blacula though, I mean, ultimately the movie is, it takes liberties with the idea behind Dracula. But at the end of the day, it is a black vampire movie in the fact that it actually, one of the things I think is interesting, and right away, it kind of establishes this, is that the film recognizes that Dracula as a vampire exists, right? Because in a lot of movies, it's like, what? Vampires? What? I've never even heard of those things. It's kind of the same idea with like zombie movies too, where everybody acts like zombie movies have never been in the zeitgeist. We don't know what they are. What are you talking about?
Yes, Count Dracula.
Yeah. So in Blacula, it is interesting that the film recognizes that Dracula is known, and people, think of him as a vampire, and they think that it's a myth, and just a story. And I think that's kind of a cool thing about it. And at the beginning of the film, we do meet Count Dracula. Count Dracula played by a white dude.
That's not Count Dracula.
Yeah.
That's some like fucking fop off the Pirates.
Not your Dracula. Yeah. But
well,
yeah,
just hold on. You need like how ridiculous he looks, and it's like again, he looks like he just walked off, like some Tin Pan Alley, like third-rate rendition of like the Pirates of Penzance with his like swashbuckling mustache, and fucking like parachute pants.
And he is like I don't know, a poor man's rendition of Dracula. Christopher Lee is certainly not happy with the performance. But I think it's interesting that the opening of the film sort of takes place in Transylvania, where Dracula is inviting William Marshall's character at the time, and he's not Blacula at that point, and I forget his specific African name. What do you remember what it is? He's like an African prince.
Yes.
What is it? Yeah. I forget what his specific African prince name is. I don't
want to butcher it.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm
Mujawade or something like that.
Mamuwalde.
Mamuwalde. Yeah, that's right. And he invites Mamuwalde and his bride, Luva, to dinner. And basically, Mamuwalde thinks he's going to help, the black man in the enslavement of them. And instead, Dracula's like, oh, no, you're not leaving here. Like, I'm going to feast on you. And that's basically the extent of the origin.
Well, he wasn't going to until he said some racist shit.
Yeah, until what they would say is the black man got uppity, and it was time to end it. Yeah, which I think is funny because, like I was saying to you off air, we haven't progressed much further from this film's like depiction of racist white guy, where he says like, "Well, you guys are from the jungle,"
I know.
Our president could be saying that literally on Truth Social right now. I don't know, but we haven't gotten very much further from that racist.
Like fucking Count Dracula and Transylvania is like up to date on what the jungles of Africa are like.
Yeah. But that sets everything in motion, right? And we get basically, and I love too the fact that Dracula, after sucking his blood, is like, we will call you Blacula. Like he's just giving the name to him. In this is played out too. I want to be clear that the whole idea is kind of played out not for laughs, not as a sort of a comedic take on Dracula, but very seriously. Like he seriously is saying you will be called Blacula, and it's like I don't know. The film just takes the fun out of it and sort of like just treats it as serious as possible, which I think is a problem. Like that's part of the problem with Blacula in and of itself, is that it does take itself very seriously as a horror film, with a couple of limitations. Of course, there are a couple of comedic elements, but for the most part, it's a very serious type movie, and I do feel like that is a missed opportunity. But I thought that it was pretty hilarious when he refers to him by the title name Blacula. Like he came up with that.
It's so fucking stupid. Like the part they're going for is taking away Mamuwalde's name from him, and becoming a slave and a puppet to Dracula. Again, which fits well with the allegory.
Yeah, and I think it's a very cool allegory if the film really runs with it. But this is, again, the allegory itself that we're crafting around Blacula, and what critics have probably ascribed to Blacula throughout the years, is one of those things that it's like, yes, you can see that depiction of it, but it's really shaky when you actually watch the film and like try to. You're ascribing meaning to this when it's not really present in the movie. I would say, like,
I think it's bastardized by calling it Blacula.
Sure,
if you want to go that route, call him Dracula. It's not like I am William. You are my son. Ergo, your last name is Williamson. And then, well, I have a slave. Now his name is Black Williamson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. It does take, like, it's humorous, but again, the intention is really not to be.
No.
You know,
supposed to be very serious.
And I feel like, too, like, the part of it was that they just really wanted to run with that name, and it's fine. Like, sure, name the movie Blacula, because it kind of, that's fine. But to, like, actually go further and give William Marshall's character the name Blacula, like, very explicitly say, you will be called Blacula. I don't know. Yeah, it's comedic, but unintentionally so. And I do think that it takes away a little bit of the thematic element to the movie. Which, again, I'm saying, like, I really feel like there's a tenuous connection to that. There's a connection that we're making, that we're saying, the film subtly implies that the idea behind Blacula as a character trope is that here's the white person who is saying, like, this is the ultimate enslavement, right? The ultimate enslavement is not just like, we will use you as slaves, but that you will forever, for centuries, be enslaved to this, like, this hunger, this thirst for blood that will never really sate you. And that's sort of like metaphoric symbolism of never being able to overcome this curse is sort of the idea of the ultimate enslavement. And that's a little bit of a stretch, and that could be said of many vampire films too. Vampire films have this idea of master and slave to them, because again, you can read it a different way, and you can say that Blacula or Dracula has his wives, and there's a sort of master and slave element to them as well. And I think that it's a stretch to ascribe that meaning to this movie, but I think that that's ultimately the blaxploitation reading of the movie is this idea that you're the ultimate enslavement. And then later on, as Blacula really, 200 years later or whatever, is now in contemporary, which they call the present day. Like, I don't recognize this present day. Yes, this is not my present day. But they call the present day 1972. He's now recognizing that, like, he's stuck with this curse. His love is gone. He has been relegated to the shadows. Right? He can never go in the sunlight. He's, as the black man is pushed to the shadows. Please don't come into these stores during the daytime. Like, you've got your nightclubs at night. You can go to those instead. It's kind of that idea of pushing the black person outside of the bounds of normal society.
I just thought of a black vampire movie besides this.
The Eddie Murphy one?
No. Blade.
Well, yes. Yeah, Blade. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I almost forgot about Blade.
Yeah.
Don't know how. I love Blade.
That is true.
Chris Christopherson's finest role, just limping around and cursing.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about this whole idea of bringing, Blacula into 1972? And but ultimately the whole idea behind his, why the film exists is that we've got Tina, who's happens to be played by Vanetta McGee, which we just had in The Great Silence as well. Pretty much unrecognizable in this movie compared to The Great Silence, but she's basically a reincarnation of his love, Luva, 200 years ago. And
all I could think of was the Mummy.
Sure. Yeah. The same idea. Like,
just because of, Rachel Weisz and Hemotap, that's all I could.
The reincarnated. Yeah. But that's ultimately the through line of the plot is that, that's why he's pursuing this. He's pursuing Tina, who he, basically thinks of as his past love, Luva. And then we've got Dr. Gordon Thomas, played by Thalmus Rasulullah. Love the name. And he's, running around town, basically doing some sort of, not really explained why, but like just some random doctor running around examining bodies in the police morgue and stuff like that, just to try to figure out what's going on with them.
He's not just a doctor. He's a doctor of science.
He's a doctor of science. Yeah. And that's, those are our main through lines. And Gordon is sort of like our Van Helsing style, I guess, character. But that's what's going on in Blacula.
I'm more concerned, so the way that Blacula gets from Transylvania to America, stupid. One, why is Dracula's castle up for sale?
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, we're just going to sell Dracula's castle, Two, why did they feel the need to have them be the queens ever? It's not bad, but it's, I don't know if it's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek funny or
I don't know. Yeah, it's almost reason for them to drop multiple F-bombs, just or sort of this idea of they had it coming style, oh, we don't really care what happened to them, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I think that is really an interesting, like you said, and actually too, the interesting thing about it at the beginning is that it's sort of treated very normally. Mm-hmm. The realtor is just sort of sure,
they're in Europe. That's why it's okay. It's fine. You can be homo in Europe. Sure, that's fine. Whatever. We don't care. But
I also love too that the realtor is so willing to sell this castle. He's like, what if I drop this 10%? They didn't even ask for it.
I love too that he also has a German Jaeger hat that he's wearing. He's off. He's about to go play do the yodels for the.
Sure. Yeah, for
the frickin' Price is Right game, where
yeah.
How about 10% off? But again, like I said, who owned it? Why is it being sold? You think at that point it'd be Romanian, Hungarian civic property.
Sure. And no one checked the coffin.
Yeah, no one was open up to see what's in there.
Yeah, no one was like, huh, that's weird. There's a fucking coffin in this castle. I wonder what's going on there. And, it's just Blacula literally living in this coffin for years.
Van Helsing, though known vampire killer and defeated Count Dracula, also renowned racist, saw that black coffin. He's like, I smell black magic.
Yeah.
Kept walking away.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and you would think too, because, Luva, it is, trapped in that very fucking terrible looking trap room. Where, when she gets trapped in there, you clearly see, yes, that door is held together by dreams and hope and starlight, It's so cut out. But she's left in there to die with him and, to rot. So where the hell's her skeleton and, stuff,
Right. Yep.
But it's just funny, because, again, we bought it. And it's like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. We have a warehouse we're gonna take this shit to, and we're gonna sell it, make a ton of money, and then they let Blacula loose, and they get bitten.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surprised when he bites them, he didn't go hey,
They pass the gay on to him instead. Yeah. The way that the film treats gay people, you would think that they would think, oh, that's catching as well. I don't know. There's not a lot of thought put into the way that Dracula eventually gets to the mainland. Again, it's sort of like
the port of LA, going from fucking Transylvania to the port of LA. So they gotta somehow either get to the Mediterranean or the North Sea, sail out to the Atlantic, then fucking go through the Panama Canal, and go off to the Horn of, up to. It's just funny. You'd think oh, maybe it's a blaxploitation film. We'll just put it in fucking Harlem or something.
Yeah.
Make that voyage a lot easier. No. But, I mean, it's funny, too, because it's not LA is a part of, a scene. It's not a character in the film.
No.
know,
It actually doesn't. Yeah, and
It's just
again,
It's literally just convenience.
yeah, the setting itself is actually really not a big part of the movie, and there's only really a few settings. It's pretty clear that this movie was made on a fairly cheap budget. Even cheaper than some of the other blaxploitation movies that were filmed after this. The nightclub sequence, is one of the big ones that they have. That we keep recurring back to. The police precinct, which looks like it's pretty run down as an area. And, a couple of the other elements here, which are really strange, like at the end of the film where we go to like some random chemical factory, like for some reason, not really explained all that well, but yeah,
they were allowed to use it for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, basically, yeah, and they let that one dude, and they let Blacula throw those empty barrels at one dude off the catwalk, so they could use it. But the settings aren't really that spectacular, and they don't really have much presence. So like you said, yeah, the LA setting is really not not really that relevant. They don't even use the streets of LA that often to showcase it either. So and I think like that is one of the biggest issues with Blacula, is that the film is really it, like we said, it takes itself so seriously, and the study of the vampirism by Dr. Gordon Thomas is so rote that it ends up being a very sort of boring movie for a good 45 to 50 minutes of the movie, of just your usual vampire exploration of, Dr. Gordon basically going from precinct to morgue to, bodies, and just examining them, coming to the same conclusions that we obviously know because we're watching Blacula, right? It's not like the film is like trying to keep the fact that there are vampires in the movie away from the viewer. We know that there are vampires. I feel like they really should have probably gone a different route than having this whole investigation and treating Dr. Gordon Thomas like a Van Helsing type character, because it doesn't really work well for the movie. It's
literally just him going like, no, it can't be.
Yeah.
I can't help you. What do you got to tell me what's going on? I have a theory, but I can't tell you, and it's like,
yeah. I feel like it takes the fun out of the movie. Like there should be more fun in seeing William Marshall just traipsing around LA with his ridiculous cape and the crazy beard thing that he sports when he's got his vampire face on, which again seems like an intentional decision to try to make, every time the black person turns into a vampire, it is very much like the white person stereotype of like a black crack addict, right? Like, I mean, it seems like that's intentional, that they're saying like, look, when this vampire, when he's in his vampire mode, like, here's what you guys think of like black crack addicts on the street look like, running at you. Because the one that really stood out to me was when the one waitress / photographer, for some reason, who goes to her
dark room that's in her kitchen.
Yeah. Comes running, she comes running around, and they like are corralling her, and the other lady who comes running out of like the bathroom at the police officer with her hair all like teased out and stuff. It definitely reminds me of that, like sort of a tongue-in-cheek mocking of how white people would see a black person. But at the same time, I don't think that the film really makes a good use of the tongue-in-cheek humor that it could do. It plays itself pretty straight, and I think that it's it misses a lot of opportunities to just utilize William Marshall's formidable character. He's like 6'5", he's a big dude. He's got a really particular appearance, and again, he's sporting this ridiculous cape that people actually make comments about in the film too. They're like saying like, "Ooh, what the hell's going on with that guy's cape? Like, look at this guy's rags." But they never really make use of it in like a entertaining fashion, and I think that that's part of the issue with Blacula, is that it's so serious and so stuck in its ways to try to do a traditional black vampire movie that it doesn't really have fun with the proceedings. You know, I feel like
not like a Hammer film. Like
yeah.
Not only that though, too. Again, like with the way he looks, it's like he's wearing like just pleated tuxedo pants and a white T-shirt, and then like a white button up, and then he's got puts the little cape on. But other than that, it's like he has pubes on his face when he's going vampire. Like it looks totally ridiculous, and it's completely squandered because it takes itself too seriously and it doesn't do a good job in pulling off its seriousness. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the worst of both worlds too, right? Like if you want to be serious, okay, but you can't have Blacula as the name, and you can't have this sort of almost like on purpose stereotype of the black person to be a serious black vampire movie. And at the same time, like those elements are what probably some of the best if you really play up the comedic sort of tongue-in-cheek, stereotyped elements that you really want to mock and call attention to. And I don't think that the film does a good job with either of those things. And so it sits in this really weird middle ground that makes it not really that entertaining to watch and more interesting to think about a version of it that it could have been than what actually is presented to you. And it's not to say that the film is terrible. It's certainly watchable. It has its moments. Like, I think, there are some funny scenes. The taxi cab driver who, basically starts berating William Marshall for getting hit by a taxi cab, which is hilarious in and of itself when he gets hit by the taxi. It looks awful and not done very well, but it's pretty funny.
Her outfit is just ridiculous.
Like the whole like I just came out of the sitcom Taxi.
Yeah,
instead of
which way to go to Family Matters.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very exaggerated version of a taxi cab driver. And then too, there's these more irreverent elements to the movie, like the whole morgue scene where we see the coroner and he's like this weird guy who's basically saying like, this taxi cab driver, she's a woman, she was asking for it, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, and he's got a hook for a hand, like that is just not commented on or anything. It's just randomly a part of the proceedings that you just are expected to take seriously. Those scenes are funny. I just wish that they capitalize on them. They took more advantage of stuff like that, the weirdness of Blacula that it could have been, instead of what I would say is just a very rote telling of a vampire movie that sort of, lacks a lot of character to it.
Which is also the film's biggest sin. It is that because of that, it's dull as a motherfucker. It's got so much downtime, boring, just like it's a soap opera, like talking here, talking there, talking here, talking there, talk. Seventh time at the club, it's just like I was checking in and out, like it's like the second half of the film, like
I think there are a couple good moments that that stand out to me as something that was great, like when there's like a couple of times where Dr. Gordon Thomas is basically assaulted by William Marshall, Blacula, after he realizes, oh, okay, these are actually vampires, and he fucking hauls off and punches them, which is a great sort of blaxploitation moment of trading punches. And I think that those times, or either that or like the slapping that's going on, great. I like those moments. But like you said, it is a very dry film for the most part, very talky, doesn't have a whole lot going for it in terms of action. Even and again, too, the film's PG rating probably does it no favors, in that it's really a little bit hesitant to show any type of violence or more explicit content. You also have to suffer through, multiple nightclub scenes of just literally watching the nightclub band play. That that doesn't help things either, when the film seems drawn out like that. But I will say that I think that the soundtrack is really groovy. I think that the funk soundtrack that it gets, towards the beginning, the credit sequence, which I think the credits are pretty ingenious as well. I really like the credits, the actual drawings of the vampire bat after a buxom red lady. I like the credit sequence a lot. I think that the opening themes the funk theme is really groovy. I like the fact that it incorporates this very horror adjacent theme music to it, of sort of the creeping, dreadish Halloween style, almost like some of the theme itself sounds like it could be from Halloween. Obviously Halloween was not made at this time. But very piercing sequences of the theme music, and it's paired with sort of this funk flute that comes in here and there, which I think works really well. I really like the soundtrack. It's just that it's unfortunately not paired with a suspenseful film. It's not suspenseful. It's not that fun. I think that that's its biggest problem. What do you think about your professor saying, that's an affront to black people? Is that because of the themes of Blacula, or just that it's just not a really good movie to watch?
No, I mean, I wouldn't know because we didn't have a discussion on it. But I think it's just because it's an affront to watch. It's not not a great piece of cinema.
Yeah.
Because again, there are good things here. How Blacula is portrayed to be, the opposite of Dracula. Even still, Mama Walde is still a gentleman. Somebody who's, though he has this hunger and lust, unlike, his, white master Dracula, he's still, very pleasant and very, for the most part, controlled and moral on who he is. We get to see that because we see him stalking Tina, and because he thinks it's Luva reincarnated. And when they start talking, he's just I think you're, my wife of old. And she's like, well, that's fucking weird. And he's like, listen, I love you and I want to be with you. Either you do or you don't. And if not, I'm not going to make you and I'll just leave. And then she's like, wait, I'll keep you king. And, but because in Dracula, what is it happens in Dracula? Woman, the virginal woman gets away and he's like, I gotta have her, So, that's a good thing. I think William Marshall, as, Mama Walde Blacula, I think he does a good job. I think he's just not given enough to do. And he himself cannot carry the film, to the finish line.
Yeah, agreed.
Like we said, again, the film takes itself too seriously. It moves at a plotting pace. It has the feeling of something that should have been 60 minutes on TV. Like a creep show episode or something, because there's not enough intrigue going on in the film to make it,
Yeah. And I think you also have that problem that, you were talking about with, Tina or Luva, whatever she ends up being called. There's not really any development to that either. It's sort of like Blacula starts courting her, and she eventually, he even is basically, like you said, he's really upfront with her. He's like, yeah, I'm a vampire, and you're my love from 200 years ago, basically. And she's just like, okay, and there's really no development to it. It's kind of out of nowhere. Just expected to go along with it, and I think that's another problem with it too, is that there's really no development of the characters. They kind of just act in the way that they are expected to, and because again, the film spends a majority of the time with Dr. Thomas, and like that's to the film's detriment, because it's really not doing itself any favors by just going through the motions of showing what a vampire is, and because it wastes a lot of time on his investigation that really could be used to do a more thorough examination of Blacula and his wooing of Tina and stuff like that. It kind of loses that plot thread and sort of has to shoehorn it in later on. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, they're together now for some reason, and that's what's going to happen. So I think again, the narrative is really not there either, and it wastes a lot of time on other non-important things to the viewer's boredom as well. What else can we talk about? I mean, what do you think about the ending of the movie where, basically after Tina's staked, because Dr. Gordon accidentally does it. He doesn't realize who's in the coffin, and he just stakes her. He basically decides like, oh, I have nothing more to live for. So I think I'll just kill myself. What do you think about that for the ending theme of the movie?
It's noble. Man,
sure.
He gets gets his, freedom on his terms. But again, all these things, don't really matter if the film's boring. So I mean,
yeah,
it's like I said, it's fine dandy, but again, like, can't be engaged if getting to the ending is that big of a slog.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like you said, it is a nice kind of wrap up to the theme of how Blacula is different from Dracula. Like Dracula exists throughout history and will not kill himself, right? Like that's not, no matter what happens, Dracula persists. And Blacula decides, this is the only thing that I wanted was like to get back to my love. That was my love was cut short. And that's really the only thing that I wanted. And now that I can't have it, who cares? And like you said, it is a ending of that enslavement, a specific choice to end that enslavement. So I like it for the theme, but it really does take a really long time to get there. Through a lot of weird choices too that the film takes to get to that point. And is it worth it? I'm not sure about that.
The closest, because I've been replaying The Last of Us right now. The closest, kind of critique I can compare the two is like it's kind of like with The Last of Us Part 2, not the TV show, but the actual game. Just because a lot of controversy around it. You either love it or you hate it. But there are a lot of people, and I've watched like a bunch of like video essays and stuff, like people who love it, like, no, you just don't understand. This is what they were writing, the themes they were coming up that make it so cool. And it's like, that doesn't matter if you're not engaged with it. So it's like, it's like, cool, your thesis could be cool, but at the end, if it's not executed well, it doesn't really matter,
Right.
That's why you can enjoy something like schlock. It doesn't have to be great. You can turn your brain off and enjoy, like, Buddy Love goes coconuts because he got it in the head with a coconut.
That's right. I don't think that this film is schlocky enough to really...
No, it's not. Not at all.
To get itself outside of the bounds of what it presents.
And the fact that IMDb has, like, B horror on there, it's like, how dare you? Like... How dare you?
Yeah. All right. So let's give Blacula a rating. So on a scale of 0 to 10, gigantic beehive wigs that Denise Nicholas is wearing in this film. It just cannot be tamed. What would you give Blacula?
I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. It's like, again, like it's an admirable effort. It's a nice idea, has some, good themes and allegory. But at the end of the day, it's boring as shit. I didn't find it to be fun at all. I didn't find it to be, the seriousness of it and the dryness made the film kind of unlikable because, again, though it's played serious, it's on too low of a budget for it to pass as that. And it's, I would say check it out just on the basis because it is Blacula. It is like, a cornerstone of, black horror films. But that doesn't mean it, has to be good. You might, some people might be able to find enjoyment here. If you're a vampire fan, if you're a fan of, African American art, but also and as you said, the soundtrack's great. It's the Hughes Corporation who does rock the boat, baby, rock the boat. So they did the score. That's why it's pretty banging. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have and if you're somebody like you're expecting gore, there's no gore. It's just they barely use any blood. Everyone the vampire hirelings in this look like fucking runaway zombies from Dawn of the Dead. They're so blue, and they just have the most ridiculous fucking fake fangs. And like I said, 5 out of 10. Check it out if it's something that it's it is bucket list film just because of where it stands in the zeitgeist. But other than that, I won't check it out again.
Yeah, I would agree. I would give it about a 5 out of 10. It's about the same as what I remember it being. Again, like I said, I enjoyed pieces of it. I enjoyed trying to pick out the themes that really would put it into the blaxploitation genre. The metaphors and allegories that it was making to the white person's Dracula. And at the end of the day, I think it gets there at the end, like you said. The ending is probably the part that elevates this a little bit, but to get there, you really have to slog through a lot of sort of boring elements that don't really matter in the scheme of things. And I think that the problem is that the film doesn't really know where to land. It doesn't want to be schlocky, doesn't want to be serious, somewhere in between, and that makes it a kind of a chore to watch until you get to that point. And so that's, the biggest issue with the movie. I think that everyone in the movie itself does a pretty good job, especially William Marshall. I think he is good as Blacula. And I think that Thalamus Rasulullah does a pretty good job for what he's given, but the problem is that the script just doesn't give them a whole lot to work with. So, it's an okay movie, but it's what I remember. I think it's more of the historical context than anything else that makes this, something to, revisit. And like I said, I've seen it 2 times now. I've never been enthused with it either time, and I think it's just a mediocre movie. It's definitely not one of the best films in the blaxploitation cycle. All right, so that's our episode on Blacula. Unfortunately, it was not as appreciative for a Black History Month movie as we, always have. But them's the breaks with movies. Sometimes you have good criticism, sometimes you don't. All right, so what do we got next? Are we going to try to see Scream 7? Is that the next thing that we're doing? I think that comes out next Friday, the 27th.
Yep.
So we'll probably take a week off since we've been, on every week and do, or unless you had something else in mind that you wanted to do.
No, that's fine.
Probably take a week off and then get back to it with
recollect,
Yeah, get back to it with our episode on Scream 7. So should be fun.
What a weird time for February to be a busy time for films,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
two, the cinemas that
movies in the theater. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, busy times. All right. Well, thanks for listening to our episode on Blacula. Hope you enjoyed and hope you're having a great Black History Month and checking out all kinds of Black-led cinema. We are on any podcast app that you can think of. So if you liked what you heard, you should subscribe, leave us a nice review. It always helps us out. Apple Podcasts, our home base at Spotify, whatever you use, I'm sure we're on it. We also have a Facebook and Blue Sky page. You can search for us on there, Blood and Black Rum Podcast. Give us a like or a follow or whatever. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com where you can write to us, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what movies you want us to watch. We'll take that into consideration. And you can also donate to us on our Patreon page. Anything you donate goes back towards beer. So we appreciate that in advance. Again, thanks for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks with Scream 7. And until then,
Take care.